Mic check 212, bitch.
Better? Yeah, there we go. As I said, what's up? This is DDP with the Dallas Prospect. Starting a belated stream here tonight. I don't know what the quality is going to be. I've been fighting with my computer ever since the live remote the other night. I think just some of the settings or something are messed up. I'm not sure what exactly went on there. But yeah, it's been pretty inconsistent of an experience today using my normal setup. So that happens sometimes with live remotes and having to move equipment around. Sometimes not everything always wants to play nice when you get set back into the normal situation. But nevertheless, I'm going to offer what I can of a preview for the Cowboys Colts game this Sunday. They kick off at noon. And with another win, the Cowboys will lock down the NFC East, giving themselves a home playoff game. That's cool, obviously. And here's the thing. Even if they lose, if Philly and Washington also lose, and Philly's got to go play an angry Rams team that just got beat down by the Bears. So I don't like Philly's chances, especially now you hear that Carson Wentz likely done for the year with a fractured back after dealing with the Dallas defense. That certainly had to take a toll on him. I don't know what to make of Philadelphia. I mean, they'll have Nick Foles, so maybe the offense will still be all right. But I think the Rams are probably more than enough to put away Philly. As for Washington, they've been the walking wounded. They're on to Josh Jackson now as the quarterback. What's good, Stevie Mac? DDP, what's the word out on the street for the injuries for us? Heard some peeps are finally coming back. Yeah, there's been optimism expressed that, well, one, Zeke seems like he's fine. He's practicing again today, so he should be good to go. There's also been talk that Sean Lee is going to be coming back. We thought for a while last week that he was going to be back then, and it worked out, and rather didn't work out for him to come back. Then David Irving, to me, that one's a big question mark. I still don't know much about if he's ready. Tavon Austin sounds like he could be ready soon. So, yeah, reinforcements are definitely coming, and this is already a stacked team. Let's see here. How do you feel about the potential of going up against Seattle in the wild card? I don't love it, obviously. Seattle's a hot team right now, but at the same time, they're not as star-studded as they were before. They're kind of doing it with random guys, which does make me think that maybe there's a little bit more. Hey, in the Mavs game, the big German Dirk officially checking in here. I multitask. Don't worry about it. So, yeah, they got that going on. And I think Seattle they're very good, but I don't think that they want a rematch with us. Dallas played them tough, and our defense hadn't really figured itself out at the time yet. They were still stout, but it was like, week 3, and they were giving up some big plays here and there. I think they had 2 50-yard strikes when we had, like, Kayvon Frazier having to drop back into coverage against, like, Lockett, I think it is who it was, and that's never something that you want to have. So Frazier in coverage is never what you want anyway. He's better basically playing another basically linebacker whenever he's in there because he plays up close. Can't catch him. Smells like a trap game big time. Well, here's my thought there. Yes, it's an AFC opponent, so I totally understand the logic and the thinking, especially now having beaten Philadelphia. You get that big emotional win, and maybe that does kind of take away and distract a little bit from everything else that you've been doing. But I don't know that that's a problem with this team because they haven't locked it down yet. They want to win to get in, not just have Philly and Washington lose. And on top of that, they know that they're red hot right now, and they don't want to take their foot off the gas. Now, this is a real debate, a real discussion about how they should manage certain guys moving forward, like Ezekiel Elliott, for instance. He is one touch shy of his total from 2016 because all of the addition of adding him to the receiving game, which, by the way, I think since Amari Cooper joined the Cowboys, both Amari Cooper and Zeke are tied for 40 receptions each, which I think is tied for like the 4th or 7th most in the league since that time. So legitimate production. They're finally using Zeke in the passing game like I wanted. What's better is they're not just doing it in those like little check down screens at the line of scrimmage where it's just dead to rights the second the play is snapped. They're being a little more creative. They're not really going Le'Veon Bell or anything like that, lining them up outside, although they have done that a little bit. But it's just a balancing act. They got to figure out how they got to go about it. Dirk made his first shot. That's what's up. Dirk officially kicks off season 21, only player in NBA history to ever play 21 seasons with one team. I wish he could have been there last night. I wish he could have played last night during the live remote we did, but all the same. I think Dallas is going to have to figure out how to manage some of these guys. You want to stay hot, but you also got to understand Zeke needs some time. They also need some time for guys like, Martin's playing through his second MCL sprain of the season. And even though he hasn't really been practicing much at all this year, or really this last month, I should say, they still have to consider without rest, without proper rest, it's not gonna heal. You know what I mean? But I don't know. Maybe that's something. Do you give Martin a couple weeks? Because if you win this week, if you beat Indianapolis, you're guaranteed the 4 seed. Do you give Martin rest, like 2 games rest, and maybe give Zeke one of those weeks off, or at least a very, very light workload? I don't know. To me, that's something worth discussing. But it's very interesting the kind of path the Cowboys have to navigate here. I don't know definitively what the correct answer is for them. It just feels like they need to do something where they're still hot, they're still able to do what they need to take care of business, but at the same time, you got to understand that you're integrating new parts as well. Sean Lee coming back means your linebacking rotation is going to change up a little bit. Tavon Austin, I'm actually pretty excited to see what Tavon can bring to this team now, because now adding him to this lineup, now that you have Amari Cooper, I think Tavon Austin could be more impactful. I don't know for sure that Tavon Austin is back just yet, say prime time, but he's very close from the sounds of it. Now, he said that when he tore his groin, which already sounds awful, he said that when he tore his groin, it was basically torn off the bone, which just sounds like the worst injury I can imagine. But he did not have surgery. He rehabbed it. And so he's, in his words, he is just about there. I don't know for sure if he plays. I know Jerry Jones expressed some optimism about that earlier in the week. The one guy that's to me a big question mark is David Irving, just because I don't know what faith, if any, to place in him to actually be there and play. But, we're going to rock with it, and we're going to see what we got. If he's ready, he's ready, and we're going to roll. But this defense in particular, and really the team, could be getting reinforcements. If they take care of business against the Colts, then they get to decide what they want to do with regard to resting some very, very key players. Should we try to rest our guys or push for the 3 seed? You still consider the 3 seed. I'm not saying you don't try for it, but I also view it this way. With the Bears beating the Rams, that was a little bit of a surprise. Not quite the surprise that Dallas beating New Orleans was, I think. But I do think it was still nevertheless a surprise. And as a result of that, I think your best chance to get the 3 seed might have already passed, because the Bears already had a few games where they were missing Mitchell Trubisky, and they were still able to be pretty solid and still kind of stay ahead. So with Trubisky pretty much, I think, back at this point, you gotta worry about that. I would say if you're Dallas, by all means, be open for it, try for it, but don't break your back, basically, trying to get it. It's okay to be the 4 seed. You're going to host a playoff game no matter what. And even though you want to keep some momentum and stay hot, I think it's more important to be healthy, or as healthy as you can be. And it's a very, very delicate balancing act. But I don't know, man. If you win out in the regular season and you're on an 8-game winning streak, that's phenomenal. But I also view that as a risk for basically taking guys that need rest, need some time to recuperate, and you're just throwing them out there and into the fire, and that's not good for them either. I think that leaves them with almost nothing left in the tank for any kind of playoff run that you would definitely need. Let's see here. Colt defense can be ripped apart easily, though, says Stevie Mack. Here's the thing. Matt Eberflus, our former, we were kind of grooming him to be our next defensive coordinator just last year. And he left to become the defensive coordinator for the Colts. And so as far as like the philosophy of the defense schematically, it's basically our defense. They just don't have the talent kind of spread around the defense that we have. But they do have 2 very good defensive tackles. So that's the big difference there. They're going to play a lot of that bend don't break kind of zone scheme. And it's gonna look familiar. I just don't think they have the talent to play forth. Zeke could be a huge weapon in this game because with what he can bring in that second dimension of the passing game, like I said, 40 catches since Amari Cooper joined the Cowboys. That is something that Indianapolis does not have a really good answer for. So that's what I think Dallas's advantage is in this matchup. Colts are an average team. They're 7-6, but here's the thing. Andrew Luck, who has been sacked a million times throughout his career, his last full season he played, I think he was sacked like 49 times or something, which, by the way, Dak Prescott with 3 games to go is sitting here at like 46 now or 45, something like that. So definitely a discussion to be had there. But Andrew Luck sacked like crazy his whole career. He's been sacked 16 times in 13 games so far. So the offensive line for Indianapolis is much better now than it had been historically. That makes them a little bit more dynamic in that regard. The passing game is a little more quick. You're seeing Luck, even though I still question whether or not he really has that arm strength for the deep ball. I do think that he can pick you apart with a bunch of quick passes, kind of like a little bit of a West Coast style in that regard. Maybe that's not the correct comparison there, but a lot of quick passes I think is what you're going to see from their offense. And like I said, defensively it's pretty much the same scheme that we run. So very, very interesting there how that matches up. I think Dallas should win. Could it be a trap game? Yes. Could it be a situation where health and all that kind of nips at them a little bit? Absolutely. The offensive line Dallas had at the end of that game against Philadelphia was nowhere near as strong as the offensive line we've had at other parts of this season, which has been a flawed offensive line in itself as well. You had, at the end of the game, you had Connor Williams out there on right tackle, which, by the way, is where I think he should be. Or, excuse me, no, he was playing left tackle in that game because... No, it was Zach Martin who went down. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but we had Connor Williams in there having to fill in because of injury. And so the line was just beat to hell. And it made a huge impact on how Dallas was able to finish that game. Now Zeke and Dak and Amari were able to still get the job done. But if you're going to run with that line for too much longer, it's going to start to show. And not just in the form of Dak Prescott sacks, where it's either him holding on to the ball too long or whatever. It's going to show in other areas too. The running game kind of shrinking a little bit. So it's a balancing act for Dallas for sure. One thing of note on this, I saw a great kind of a great, I guess, take on the whole situation with that 75-yard touchdown pass to Amari Cooper. We talked about how Dak and Cooper basically, the call was a stop route. Amari pointed out, hey, they've been sitting on the stop routes all day. This is a ridiculous play call. We need to go over the top. And Dak initially saying, nah, just run the play, just run the play. And then Dak kind of looking at it once they got lined up and was like, you know what? Actually, yeah. And so he sent the kind of subtle, nonverbal audible for Amari to run a go and connects over the top, 75-yard touchdown pass. I mean, that's phenomenal. And while we look at that and our initial instinct is to say, well, I mean, it's not even necessarily a wrong instinct, but while the immediate reaction is to say, you know, like, oh, come on, Scott Linehan, what are you doing, you know? Like, we get mad at Linehan because we think it's a ridiculous thing. Like, everyone knows what you're doing. Our star players are exacerbated trying to do what you're asking them to do because it doesn't make sense, and they know it doesn't make sense. But the fact is, you got to remember, Amari Cooper's been here 6 games. 6 games. Dallas is 5-1 with him. So he's been here 6 weeks. The fact that he and Dak, with no training camp, no off season, and 6 weeks of actual playing time together, the fact that they are already comfortable enough that in a moment like that, within a way, their season kind of on the line, or maybe not on the line completely, but damn close, that they would make that call in that moment and their chemistry was right, that they were able to connect. I think that says a lot. That's a lot of growth between Dak and Amari. We've seen more development and chemistry between Dak and Amari in 6 weeks than we saw with Dez and Dak in, 2 years? I mean, it's crazy the stint of how this is all developed, but it does kind of smash that narrative that Dak is just such a bad quarterback that he doesn't have chemistry with anyone. He's clearly found that chemistry. He's clearly found that chemistry with Amari Cooper, and it completely changes things for Dallas, which is awesome. Let's see. Hilton is an absolute beast, but honestly, I'm worried about their tight ends, especially Ebron. Ebron is a monster in red zone, especially. Through the first 11 games, he had 11 receiving touchdowns. And I wanted Dallas to go after him in free agency. They didn't. They wanted to stand pat with what they had. I felt like you could have gotten him for pretty damn cheap. And while Dak isn't going to be like Andrew Luck and get him 11 touchdowns in 11 games, he's certainly better than anything we've got right now. And that's even with, before he got hurt, Swaim kind of emerging a little bit, before Jarwin started breaking out now the last couple games here as well. Same kind of boat. I would take Ebron over either of those guys. And yes, T.Y. Hilton is a beast. You're going to see Byron work with him. Byron is still one of the better graded out cornerbacks in the league when it comes to coverage skills and ability. So that's going to be a real challenge for Dallas. If he can hold him relatively in check, you know, in the case of Hopkins, DeAndre Hopkins, he actually got Byron a couple times. And that was a big swinging point in that game. So you got to pretty much play lockdown here. I think if you're Dallas, you need to keep Byron pretty much glued to him, because a couple of DeAndre's biggest plays, Hopkins again in the Houston game, a couple of his biggest plays were when he got matched up instead on Cheeto or Anthony Brown or someone like that. You have to avoid that at all costs if you're Dallas. Although those guys have played better lately. Dirk is slow. Yes, he is. Dirk has been slow. This will be the last run. Pretty much he is just a spot-up option at this point. Just limit Zeke. I want to sit Zach, says Cato, Dallas Ambassador. Yeah, that's my thinking too. You need to limit Zeke. I know Zeke would probably on a personal goal level want to win another rushing title because, you know, guys got pride like that. They want the accolade. But to me, the bigger thing is, dude, I just want you healthy and relatively fresh come the start of the playoffs. Like, we know Zeke can have rust. He starts every year with 3 to 4 games of slow development, and then he kind of catches his stride, and then he's off. But, you know, we need to balance that a little better. I think we effectively held him out the last game. We held him out the entire last game in 2016, and that's the only reason he didn't break Dickerson's record in that case. But even still, they need to manage him in a way that they can still get production, still keep the offense kind of moving along, but don't put all of it on him. Martin, yeah, Zach Martin, they've dodged 2 bullets this year, if not three, that he hasn't had to have surgery. Like, it hasn't been a major injury yet for him. I'm knocking on wood. It's fine. Don't worry about it. That he hasn't had a major injury yet in Dallas, because in the preseason he had that scare. Turned out it was all right. He just needed some rest. It was just a sprain. Then at Philadelphia he had it happen, and then against Philadelphia again he had it happen. So they have to figure out something that they can do in that regard to get him rest, because you can only re-sprain the same ligament so many times while not letting it heal before the damn thing just tears. And that would be disastrous for Dallas. So if I'm Dallas, I agree. I'm giving him at least those 2 games off, if not all 3. It'll hurt the offensive line play a little bit, but man, I care more about the long haul, and you're pretty much guaranteed a playoff spot at this point anyway. If Philly loses another game this year, they're done. If Washington loses another game this year, they're done. So even if you lost out, even if you lost those 3, if either of them, or if both of them lose just 1 game, you're in. That's why Dallas has a 99.9% chance to make the playoffs and get a home field, or get a home game in the process. Like, you worked hard for this and managed it to this point. Now reap the benefits of what it provides. It's crazy, by the way, that Dallas started 3-5, and yet they're clinching the division potentially with 2 full weeks after this game. You know, like 2 weeks left in the season. Like, for a team that started that slow, it's weird that we're clinching as early as we did. Even in 16, we didn't clinch this early. We clinched late in the year. Let's see. Definitely like to win this game so we can start limiting our players' playing time. Zeke definitely needs a break. You can tell he's getting exhausted. Yeah, in the second half of that Eagles game, man, he was calling out. He was calling to come out of the game like every 2 or 3 snaps. I mean, he was gassed. And that fourth, I was impressed, I should say. He converted that 4th and 1 in overtime, because, he looked dead. It almost looked like he was just falling forward. He was just like, ugh, like dead body just flopping across the first down line to keep the drive alive. So it is what it is, though. He got the yard. That's what mattered. If Cowboys have to play the Bears or Seagulls, I'm okay with that. Both defenses are good, but both QBs not elite by any means. No, I disagree on Russell Wilson not being elite. Russell Wilson is the only reason Seattle hasn't fallen off a cliff the last 2 years. Last year, he accounted for just an absurd number of their touchdowns. Like, he was their leading touchdown runner and passer. His rushing yards accumulated for a lot of them too, or accounted for a lot of them. Russell Wilson is a bona fide star, so I don't like the idea of facing them, but I feel like the rest of the team is fairly lacking in name brand star talent. And hey, someone's watching on Twitch. That's what's up. But that's where they're at with that front. And then I look at the Bears. I think the Bears are probably about where we are defensively. Like, I look at what Khalil Mack has done for them. Ironic, that's another Raiders trade that turned them around, just like the Amari Cooper trade turned us around, even though it was an offensive player. What Khalil Mack has done for that defense, and what Roquan Smith will be at linebacker as well, the Bears are going to be nasty. The question there is, can you catch the Bears' offense, which I feel like can be a little inconsistent, and Trubisky in particular? Can you take advantage there? And if we get to that point, you can bet your ass I'm going to be doing a preview for that game with the Sports Fury with Josh and Sean. Josh is a huge Bears fan. Sean, like me, like us, is a Cowboys fan, so we will absolutely be involved in that if we get to that point. Connor did well. If the Bears lose to the Packers and Aaron Rodgers and we beat the Colts, are we the 3 seed? Let's see. So if the Bears lose to the Packers this week and we beat the Colts, are we the 3? Yes, we would be the 3 in that circumstance. Because we both won last week. Yeah. We can take the Bears. It's playing them in Chicago that I'm not a fan of. Well, if they're the 3 seed, that's what you potentially would have to do if they also got past it. But, you got to think, too. Like, I'm trying not to look this far ahead to the playoff pictures. All I care about is like, oh, you're telling me if we win this week and the Bears lose, we go up to 3? Okay, that's cool. But when it comes to like discussing potential matchups, like, oh, well, here's how we would match up against the Seahawks, for instance, if we face them in the first game, the divisional round. Oh, or it'd be wild card weekend, not divisional round. In wild card weekend. Oh, okay, cool. Okay, and then if we got past them, here's how we would match up with the Bears. I don't want to get into all that. I feel like this franchise has won 2 playoff games since its last Super Bowl, and we need to focus above all on just getting to the game directly in front of us. I know because of the circumstances, we can look a little bit to saying like, all right, more than likely, we've locked up the playoffs, at least in appearance. Sweet, awesome. We can think a little bit about the first playoff game, but let's just see what state the team is in when it gets there, since it's still 3 weeks out. Barry Grogan, what's up? I think the Colts need to worry about Dallas's front 4. They do. They do, but the Colts have a damn good offensive line. Andrew Luck has been sacked 16 times in 13 games. So they are giving up barely a sack a game. Meanwhile, 2 weeks ago, Dak was sacked 7 times. They have to figure things out. I think Dallas's biggest advantage in that regard, the Colts as well for their defensive line. They have 2 big, pretty good defensive tackles that can really cause some problems for the Dallas run game. I'm curious to see if Scott Linehan can work in a couple wrinkles. I know faith in Linehan to make offensive adjustments and game plan feels a little misguided, but if he can make some adjustments to get Zeke the ball out in space a little bit, or at least a little bit of creativity would really go a long way, I feel. Basically, it's either Dak or Linehan has to go. Well, Dak's not going anywhere, so it's going to be Linehan that goes. Their styles just don't go with each other. Linehan needs a pocket passer for his type of play calling. Since Dak has 1 year left, Linehan should go. And they've already said that their plan is to extend Dak and Amari Cooper this offseason, so it'll be Linehan that goes. Russell Wilson didn't get MVP last year. Oh, BS that he didn't get MVP last year. He carried the team by himself, one of the worst O-lines to ever play the game. Absolutely, I agree. Russell Wilson is a monster. There's no doubt. And the thing is, the last 2 times we've played him, we've held him in check, largely. Now, earlier this year in Seattle, he burned us a couple times with long touchdowns, and Randy Gregory had one of the dumbest unsportsmanlike conduct penalties to just completely kill us in that game. But aside from that, at Dallas when we played them last year, Christmas Eve, that was right there for the taking. And then for the most part, that's how it was at Seattle earlier this year too. So I feel like we can take Seattle. I really do. I feel like we can hold them in check, and it just comes down to, okay, now we have Amari Cooper. We didn't have that before. And if you recall, yes, we had Dez last year in the Christmas Eve game against Seattle, but that was probably one of Dez's worst games as a Cowboy, if you recall. 2 or 3 bad drops, and then the horrifically bad fumble after a great play or at the end of a great play. So they have to figure some things out for sure. And, can we count on Cooper to not fall into those pitfalls and give us some bigger plays that Dez missed on? With how he's playing so far, I think, yeah. Let's see. So I've been going for about 30 minutes. I got off to a late start on this game. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you think. Give me a score prediction or something if you guys want. I'm curious to get your thoughts, but I'm about to wrap up this stream. It's late. I literally had posted that I wasn't even going to do this stream tonight because of the technical issues. They seem in large part to have worked themselves out, so that's good. I think I finally got everything calibrated. But yeah, check that out. Also, don't forget to, this shoulder. Don't forget to check out the new merch store, represent.com/store/the Dallas Prospect. For all the Dallas Prospect t-shirts, we got all kinds of colors, varieties, designs, all that. We'll have new designs rolling out. You got everything from the Skyline Dallas Prospect logo, pictured in the bottom of that thumbnail over Cha. Wait, I can. The comments are gonna block it. Got that. Got the regular just Mike Fist circle logo. And for the Mavericks fans, we got the Luka Legend design, which I wore for the event last night. Let's see here. You see that news with Taco. They really don't seem happy with him. Won't be surprised if he's cut this offseason. I would be surprised if he's cut because he was a first-round pick and it's only year 2. But, yeah, his presence isn't as crucial to their success right now. And of all the success they've had picking in the first round in recent years, he has definitely been a bit of a letdown for them. I don't think there's any way that you can split it. I know it's a different scheme. It's a 4-3 versus a 3-4, but they should have taken TJ Watt. They absolutely should have taken TJ Watt. And Taco can still be productive for him. He can still be good, but he's never going to be that. The other problem Taco had that plagued him was Jerry talking going into that draft. We are going to get a war daddy. Dude, you were picking like 29 or 27 that year. You weren't going to find a war daddy at that part of the draft. So it put unfair expectations on Taco. I felt like they reached for Taco a little bit, maybe outthought themselves a little bit because they said, well, hey, TJ Watt's better in a 3-4, which is what he plays in Pittsburgh. Better in a 3-4 than he is a 4-3. We don't feel confident that he can be great when he has to put his hand in the dirt. Maybe, maybe not, but man, you look at everything else that the guy does, and it seems like a pretty clear indication. Hurts to miss that one. Another time I felt like they outthought themselves was Gavin Escobar over Le'Veon Bell. That one hurt. Maybe you don't even go Le'Veon. There were other options there, but Gavin Escobar in the second round was a disaster. So as good as they've been in the recent draft history, they do have their moments. They outthink themselves, I think, where they reach for something where they're like, oh, wouldn't it be great to add something like this? And it's just never really a fit. It's more the hypothetical as opposed to what the player really is or will likely become. So it is what it is. But let's see. Kent Ketchum says 27-17 Dallas. I'm gonna say the streak rolls one more week. I'm gonna say Dallas gets to 6 straight wins with a 24-20 victory over the Colts. And that'll move Dallas to 9-5. I don't think they capture the 3 seed. I think the Bears beat the Packers, officially eliminate the Packers from playoff contention because mathematically it hasn't happened yet. And I think Chicago's going to probably hang on to the 3 seed, but we'll see how things shape up. Still got 2 more weeks, but that's going to do it for my time on this stream, guys. I appreciate everyone for sticking with me, for hanging around. Again, sorry for the super late start on this. If you haven't already, like this video. I know, very end of the video, I'm asking for that. But like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell, all that good jazz. And above all, remember, every legend was once a prospect. Salute.